Welcome to Is Anybody Listening to Me podcast with Azar and the Meat. We're still on our every other week schedule, but that will be ending soon because football season is right around the corner. But we're enjoying our summertime while we can. This little break. We're going to be covering a little bit of a new. Well, I don't know if it's a new gin, but it's a gin that we got to try, and we're going to discuss the long-awaited show that Big Meat and I have been very excited for. Loki is finally streaming on Disney Plus on a different day than the other shows, which is interesting about that decision. And we're going to dive into some little fantasy football news and a show that we've been really in love with this summer so far is the WWE biographies on A&E. So let me bring in my partner, Big Meat. How's it going, Big Meat?
Going good, going good. Just the two of us today. No Jarvis lingering in the background, waiting to jump in and steal our thunder.
Well, again, when we talk about Loki or Disney shows, he's always
He couldn't
I,
care less.
I don't know if he'll probably make fun of the name for a while and
Yeah,
then laugh at us and then, but it's
and
okay.
then yeah, and then he'll recommend a stupid show that he watches that's like really lame and it's got a stupid name itself, and it
And
goes completely against what he says. He doesn't like the show because of the stupid name and the stupid character names in it, and but then he throws out some name like some stupid show, and we're like, that's a terrible title for a show. Like you wouldn't be watching that. So
yeah,
a little bit of a hypocrite.
and it's funny because as long as it has something with Britain or England or something, so he's a character. But we do miss him because I know he's got a young one at home. Yeah, so he's got
Yeah,
daddy duty. So we understand that. We've been
we've been
there.
there, done that. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. So we can weep, but we'll save some of the topics that we've been. I know he's been itching to dig his teeth into is the
Oh
whole
yeah.
Celtics, and there's some other things that I know he's
Yeah.
been dying to
So,
share his thoughts on.
stuff that he's ready to get fired up on, and we want to see angry Jarvis come out.
Oh,
And when he's not here, we don't want to talk about those. When we know he's gonna get angry over those topics. We save those. We save those for when
and we
he
know it's
comes on.
festering, and he keeps festering
Yeah.
and he's just going to unload. So I'm looking forward to that when we get to dive in with him on that topic. All right, so let's just start with our usual. So I don't know, first give you the opportunity, Big Meat. Did you have anything new that you've been experimenting with from the alcohol front?
No, but I do want to just mention only because I have these beers left over from this past weekend's baseball game. I'm going old school today. Is I ready? Ready for this? Going Miller
Miller
Lite in
Lite.
a can, out of the can, Miller Lite. I haven't had one of these in forever.
Oh
Well,
god.
this past weekend I did, but these are the ones left over from that. So it's all I
Oh,
got in the fridge, and I'm in the mood for a beer, so I'm drinking a Miller Lite.
well, it was 90-degree summer days, and sometimes the basic beers like a Coors Light or a Miller Lite, sometimes those actually hit the spot on a real hot day. So I can't judge you for that one. You don't want to, especially if you're at your son's baseball game. I don't think you want to be pulling out fruity drinks in front of the other guys and stuff. The other
No,
dad.
no, no.
You know, you don't want to put shame.
They frown upon the glass bottles too there. So like, all right, we're good. We'll break out the cans.
So
But you
you,
know what? It's like, I mean, I used to drink Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light, and God, it just tastes like water to me. Like I don't taste anything. I
there's
don't
no
know.
flavor.
It's
Yeah,
no flavor. No
yeah.
flavor.
I couldn't. I would do it. I'd probably have a Coors Light and stuff in that situation. I wouldn't be cracking open a Truly or any like a seltzer with people I don't know, just because. It just doesn't look very masculine. So
Right.
I think you went safe. It's
Yeah.
and if you started making a Manhattan on the side during a baseball game, that might not look good as a parent. So
Well, yeah, that's maybe this weekend I might pull
have a
the
little.
little old fashioned little Manhattan
Well, you know what?
with the ice with the sphere ice cubes and
I think a little bit more refreshing Big Meat would be the going gin and tonic.
that's
So
true. That's
yeah.
true. Yeah, nice segue.
So I gotta say, I went into the liquor store and I haven't paid attention to gins because I always go to the whiskey section or I'll buy vodka or but I never buy gin. It's been forever. So when we talked about and hinted about there's so many brands now that I was actually overwhelmed. I was like, okay, I see the regulars like the Bombays and the Tanquerays and all those and the beef eaters, but there's so many like smaller batch gins out there now, and they're not cheap. So they're not. they're not like you can get like a big handle for like 20, $30. They're like these smaller bottles that I saw that can be from 30 to $50 for gin. But it might be something I'm going to be experimenting with throughout the summer because I'm on a huge gin kick right now. And right now, I don't think it's new. I think this one's been out for a while, but I've had a chance to try the Ryan Reynolds gin. It's an American gin, the Aviation American gin, and it's batch distilled, and they sell it in a 750 milliliter bottle. It's about 42% alcohol, and they talk about like they have these spices and these different spices from around the world that are mixed into it. It is a really smooth gin. So if you are looking for a real smooth gin to have with your tonic, now I don't know if I would drink gin straight. I don't know anybody that drinks gin straight, but from a gin and tonic, it is delicious. And we've actually my wife and I have almost polished off the bottle in less than a week. We've just been flying through it. So it's something I would highly recommend. It is like I said, it's in a smaller bottle. It's 750 milliliters, and it's about $30 at a liquor store, and it might be between 30 and 35. I think. I think I got mine on sale. Uh, so it wasn't, but it's really good. It's really smooth, and it doesn't have that pine cone taste that you hate. That I know you're not a fan of.
No.
Um,
So
and
my go-to is usually the Bombay Sapphire. So how does it compare to Bombay Sapphire?
so it's funny you say. I was just thinking that. How do I compare it to Bombay? And I haven't had Bombay Sapphire in so long. So I think now that I'm on this new gin kick, like I was polishing off this bottle of Gordon's gin that my father gave me because he didn't want to drink it. It was a brand new bottle. So I forced that down. It wasn't terrible, but that one has like the little bit of hints of that piney, like that taste to it, right? The Aviation is far smoother than the Gordon's, which is no surprise. Compared to the Bombay, I always felt like Bombay had a different taste after. Like there was a little bit of a different aftertaste with the Bombay. This one feels like completely like just hints of flavor, but not
Hmm.
overwhelming. But I always thought the Bombay Sapphire had some flavor to it, a little bit more
Yeah.
flavor. But I think that's kind of gonna be my go-to. Is I want to go now buy a bottle of Bombay Sapphire, keep that as my standard, and then when I try these new ones, use that as a compare. Try to compare them because I think you've made a great point. Like, how do I compare it? And comparing it to like Tanqueray or Gordon's, it is not a fair comparison with a higher end gin. So I'm going to
Mm.
try to go with Bombay and use that, and then compare all the other higher ones to the Bombay. So I might end up with a few bottles. So when you come over, Big Meat, you might be helping me clear out some bottles of gin, just to let you know.
I would be happy to. You don't have to ask me twice. So I know the Bombay Sapphire. I know when you drink it, you do tend to taste a little bit of like the fruits that are in there. There's like I had to look them up because there's so many of them. But there's lemon peel, there's licorice, there's juniper berries. Um, there's something angelica. I don't even know what that is. Uh, cubeb.
Now, juniper berries is what really sticks out with the Tanqueray, right? Isn't that the taste that you get a lot of? Or am I mistaken on that?
Probably. I don't know, but they have like 10 main kind of ingredients. Almond. Who knew that almond was in Bombay Sapphire?
Really?
So yeah, so it's so they have like 10 main ingredients. There's one called grains of paradise, whatever that is. So whatever it is, you taste it. You do taste that kind of like that fruity, sweet taste to it. And maybe there is a little bit of that pine taste to it, but you don't. It gets masked by all this other stuff. So maybe that's why I loved it, many years ago. In fact, I actually just had ordered one this past weekend. We went out and I ordered a gin and tonic, and I specifically asked for Bombay Sapphire. So that was probably the first gin and
Oh.
tonic I've had in forever.
Well, we had
So,
it last weekend when we were together.
oh, I did have it. Yeah. So I had it then and I had it again. So I've had it twice. So I've had it twice in a very long time. But
Yeah.
was that Bombay Sapphire
It was a Bombay Sapphire. I think it was. Was it just regular Bombay?
could have just been? Oh,
Because
I don't know.
it wasn't Beefeaters, and it wasn't Tanqueray.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
don't know.
I
I don't
thought
know
it was
because
just.
I don't remember ever specifically asking for Bombay Sapphire. But the one I had this past weekend, I specifically asked for Bombay Sapphire. So yeah, they brought me back. it's a good drink. It's a good, like, nice, refreshing drink. In the summer, it's like it hits a spot. This was like one of those 96-degree days too, so it was like it was perfect. It was
Yeah,
perfect. So
yeah. It is Bombay gin. It was straight Bombay, not Bombay Sapphire. So I
okay,
was right on that. Because I just looked up Chili's menu real quick, and it is Bombay. But it was good, and that one is pretty good too. Regular Bombay is good. I actually like gin and tonic, so I guess I haven't had a gin and tonic unless you make it. Sometimes you get a little carried away with the pour and a little less tonic, and sometimes that gin kicks your ass a little bit. But
yeah.
it's a nice, refreshing drink. I've been really getting into them this summer, and like I said, I think throughout the podcast I'll be sharing some updates. But if you haven't tried the aviation gin, it's definitely something that I would give a shout out to. And I don't know if Ryan Reynolds still owns it. Did he sell that? I thought he already sold out of that, but he was on the label, like some tag sticker that was on the
Hmm.
bottle.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know a lot of celebrities seem to do that though, right? They come out with their own tequila or gin or whatever it is, and then they sell it. They end up selling it. Like Sammy Hagar, right? He had the Cabo tequila,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he sold it. Who else was it? Does The Rock still even own his? He probably still does. That's still fairly new. But I don't know. You just hear a lot of celebrities kind of do that.
Oh, you know what? So I did look at it. Yeah, I don't know if The Rock. That's a good question. Um, you don't see it. I don't really hear about him.
Yeah.
But anyways,
But
but
didn't George Clooney like have his own, and he made something like $300 million? Like he sold it. I forget exactly what the heck it was, but he made more money off of that than his career as an actor and a director. It was like some crazy amount of money that he came up with. I don't even remember what it is. It just was it a vodka gin? I don't even remember, but I just heard a story that he made like an absolute fortune from it.
so Ryan Reynolds. So I was just looking this up for those who might be interested. He had a stake in Aviation Gin, so he was a stakeholder, and they sold it to the same company that owns Smirnoff
Hmm.
vodka for $610 million. So he's still connected to aviation, but the company has been sold to a bigger company, bought them out
Yeah.
for a big chunk of change. So wow, that is amazing. They
So
must.
and it's George Clooney's tequila brand Casamigos.
See,
Casamigos.
I never even heard of it.
He sold that for $1 billion.
Get out, really?
Yep, the $1 billion sale of George Clooney's tequila company just made him 2018's highest paid actor. In 2018, he was the highest paid actor in 2018, based solely on the sale of his tequila that company that he's on. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I never even
It's
heard of it.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, it must be a real premium tequila then. Jeez. Uh, well, that's interesting. So, so celebrities are making booze. They're not technically; they just have stakes in these companies. But who
yeah, right,
cares?
right. Yeah, yeah. They just slap their name
Yeah,
on it and
yeah.
whatever.
It's not like
Yep.
he's in his bathtub making gin, trying different gins. So whatever.
Right.
I like, but you know, we were talking about it. Because we're gonna go into the entertainment part of our podcast. I do like Ryan Reynolds, and I know he's doing. There's a sequel movie coming out to his movie that he did with Samuel L. Jackson called The Bodyguard. Do you remember that movie at all?
Yes. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a funny movie. That was well done. Ryan Reynolds' character is pretty consistent throughout the movies. He's a goofy character. But they're making a sequel this summer, and I'm actually really looking forward to that because I love Samuel L. Jackson and Ryan Reynolds when they're together. Something about their chemistry was really funny,
Hmm.
and I love their first movie. So hopefully it's not cheesy because the first one I thought was really well done, but we'll see. We'll see. Sequels
I
tend to be.
Yeah, I do like Ryan Reynolds too, but he tends to play the same kind of character in a lot of his movies, and it's a funny character, but his humor is always the same. It's you know
Yeah.
what I mean. He cracks the jokes like the same way he would in every single one of his movies. It's a little bit monotonous, but it is funny regardless. I mean, even though it's is rehashing the same character, but
But
it's still good.
he does it so well, and it's funny because he reminds me. Every time I watch a movie with him now, all I can think of is Deadpool because it's the same character. Like he's
Yeah.
just that same comical character. So now, like the Bodyguard seems to me like a prequel to Deadpool. Like, oh, was that before he was Deadpool? Is that what he did? Like he was just this like bodyguard or so. Anyways, it's just a. But at least he's a fun actor. Doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
That's what makes it fun. Like he's just not one of those. There's so many over actors that are out there right now that are just brutal to watch. So.
Let me guess. The first one that comes to your mind.
No.
is,
I'm not gonna. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk about Nicolas Cage because he hasn't done anything meaningful in a long time. But I think of like Mark Wahlberg tends to overact in his thing.
Yeah,
and he plays the same
always.
character in all his movies. I feel like there's not a lot of depth to him. And
Yeah.
you watch the movies and you're like, oh my god,
and even the ones that he directs and he makes himself the star of the movie and he's one of the actors in it and it's always about him. Like he's like, it's just he's not a good actor. He's not a good. I'm surprised that his brother Donnie Wahlberg, because I think is a good actor, and he does that. Was it NYPD Blue or not
some cop show? Yeah,
some cop show. It's been around forever, and he's been in a few movies himself. But you would think he'd be a bigger like actor, like because he's I don't know. I think he's just a better actor than Mark Wahlberg. But it's Mark Wahlberg who's like the big star in Hollywood. So
yeah,
go figure.
He has a draw. His movies have a draw to him, and he's been affiliated with some big blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's tough to. Yeah. Again, I don't think it's him that makes the movies. Just again, it's like watching The Rock. Like Rock is probably one of the biggest like action stars right now in Hollywood. He's okay. Like I don't think he makes the movies or anything, but when he's not talking, he makes the movies. But when he's talking, it's just like, all right, let's get through the dialogue. Let's get to the action. Right. Flex, make your look. Let's just get to it.
Do the eyebrow thing and let's move on.
But I gotta say, just defensive Rock, because I know Jarvis isn't here, and he'd probably have a fit that I'm making fun of him without him here to defend him. I do actually like The Rock in comedy movies. That is something that he's actually transitioned and done a really good job, especially the movies he's done with Kevin Hart. That chemistry between those two is really well done. And there's something about The Rock. Sometimes action stars, like I always found Arnold Schwarzenegger not as funny when he's in comedy movies. Like he doesn't really carry over. He's just too big. He's too goofy. But somehow The Rock is able to add to the comedy of the movie. So. Because I'm thinking of like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Twins. Danny DeVito was like the main driver of the comedy. You know what I mean? But when you think of like The Rock with Kevin Hart movies like Central Intelligence or that Jumanji movies, I feel like The Rock does a good job holding his own and keeping it funny. So that's just
I think Schwarzenegger's is funny in the action movies, like when they put a little bit of humor in it, when it's just subtle, when it's subtle humor. When he's in a full out comedy, there's not too many of them that he's in, but Twins, of course, is one of them. But in the action movies, he's got like he made the catchphrase famous in Hollywood, right? The stupid catchphrases in every one of his movies. I'll be back, and he's like a million of them.
Yeah,
and it's like he's kind of put them out there to almost kind of make fun of himself because then he just kind of carried it over from movie to movie to movie to movie. So yeah, when it's more subtle, he can be funny, but when he pushes it, when he tries to go a little bit over the top, that's and that's what it is. He's not an actor. Wasn't really a true actor. He's been in a million movies, but he's not a true actor. So he's just trying to overact to compensate, and then it just becomes forced.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Whereas The Rock was kind of an actor. I mean, that's kind of what wrestling is, right? A little bit. They have to do a little bit of acting, and then by the time you get one into movies and into Hollywood, he's been doing it for so long. And his dad was a wrestler, so he's been around it his whole life. So he's a little bit more of a natural. But yeah, I think sometimes he gets a little bit overboard as well. I think now, as he's been around for so long, early on in his career, I thought he was just more natural in his roles. But now I just feel like he's just forcing it. He's just forcing it. And don't make me bring up young Rock again because he was so bad at it. So bad. And he played himself and it was that bad.
Yeah,
so,
I will not bring up young Rock. We'll save that for Jarvis. But Who would have known that would have bombed out? Like that would be. Did I get renewed for a
They
second
renewed,
season?
yeah, they
Yeah.
renewed for a second season. Yeah,
God,
the
they're so.
power of the Rock. He's got a lot of power.
Just because The Rock's in it doesn't mean it's a good movie or a good show. But hey, that's I'll let Jarvis defend him at another time. So speaking of actors, I do enjoy like when I see on the screen. I actually like them as an actor. Tom Hiddleston, that's how you pronounce his name, Hiddleston.
Hmm.
Loki. We all
Yeah.
know him from Loki from the Avengers and Thor and all that. So his new show on Disney Plus finally dropped, which is interesting. It drops on Wednesdays, not on Fridays. Like, which is interesting. I wonder what drove that. Is it because of the summer months? They feel like people are going to go away on the weekends and not want to watch the show. Where you dump it midweek, people don't have a lot to do in the summer. I'm just wondering what the logic is not to drop it.
Yeah, it's you mentioned it, and I want to say I read something before that Disney Plus did this to test it out, to test the audience, to experiment, because with the Friday dropping on Friday, it was they people would watch it or whatever, but they wanted people to watch it before the weekend because a lot of times they don't get around to watching it until like say Monday, and but by then there's a lot of spoilers out. If you're on
I
social
see.
media, whatever it is, so they wanted to test it out and do it on Wednesday so that people can watch it Wednesday and Thursday before the weekend when they're instead of they're going out or whatever. They don't want to sit home and watch a show. So I think they were kind of experimenting with that to see what the audience reaction is. But that's what I think. That's what I thought I've read that somewhere.
But
Um,
it is great because now in the summer months the weekends are harder, like Fridays and stuff. There's always something to do on the weekends. You know, I feel like dropping on Wednesday gives me something midweek to look forward to. So I was actually
yeah,
excited that it dropped last Wednesday, and actually it impacts our podcasting. So we now have to think about what do we want to do. Like, do we want
that's
to
right.
move it to Tuesday night again so we can have Wednesday to watch Loki?
You
Uh,
set your alarm early on Wednesday morning and
yeah,
watch it early in the morning before you
yeah.
go to work.
No, I do like watching it at night. That's kind of my thing to do when I get to finally wind down with the wife. But anyways, I actually don't know how to feel about the show. It had my interest a lot more than the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mhm.
And it was definitely a first episode better than WandaVision. And again, WandaVision, I know what they were trying to do. It was just a slow start. And I liked how it finished. And I think you and I are probably one of the few people that actually thought WandaVision was better than Falcon and Winter Soldier. Some people actually liked Falcon and Winter Soldier better, and I was surprised. I thought WandaVision was more interesting because you had to pay
Yeah,
attention. There was a lot going on. That's how I feel about Loki. There's so much going on in development, but it was kind of a lot of information. It's so much
yeah,
different pace than the other two. So what do you think? Like I
yeah.
didn't know what to make of it. I was trying to process all the stuff they were throwing out, and like this whole new, whatever the time variant. Uh,
Time Variance Authority. Is that
yeah,
what they're?
TVA. Yeah,
TVA.
yeah. This whole new thing is this. It
Yeah,
was kind of a thing you had to wrap your head around. So
yeah. They did throw a lot at you this first episode, and the way I look at it, if it's interesting enough, right, and you can kind of see where they're going with it, that'll pull you in. It didn't have to have a lot of action. It didn't have to have a lot of stuff, but it's interesting enough to say, okay, now I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. And I guess that's kind of how WandaVision was, right? It started off really slow, but you kind of see what they were trying to do with it, and it just got better and better and better.
yeah,
Whereas Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think they went like the opposite way. The opening scene was great, and then the action scene, right when he's flying around and he's like
yeah, yeah.
chasing the helicopter, and it was like so good. And then it got like worse, and like that was like the best action scene of like the entire series. And there were episodes where you're just like, oh, this is so boring. And like, he was talking with his sister on the boat. I don't want to get back to Falcon and the Winter Soldier because that was just it was a different way to create that show. Whereas Loki is seems like they're going to build that up as the episode goes along, and you could see they did throw a lot at you, so you had to really kind of pay attention to that episode. And it was a 45-minute episode. It wasn't this quick 25-minute episode like WandaVision was when that first
I
kicked
I
off.
was checking my watch. I was like, oh my god, it's still going. I
Yeah,
was actually
a
afraid it
long
was.
episode.
I was
Yeah,
afraid it was going to cut off all of a sudden, like after half hours,
Yeah.
35 minutes, and I was so happy we kept on going. Like I was like, all right, I don't. It could have went 2 hours, and I would have been
Right.
captivated by it. So
Yeah. It does. It did seem like a little bit like a true sci-fi episode. You know what I mean? Like even like the music playing in the background, it just seemed like a real, like a true, like I don't know, like a Star Trek type episode. It seemed like so, um, and I like the callbacks that they had with like the Avengers and like some of the flashbacks and some of those things that were going on. So,
yeah, it was well
and I
done.
and I like his character. I think he's like one of the better characters in the MCU, and you know, when he got killed off in Infinity War or Endgame. Which one was it? Endgame, Infinity War. I can't remember which one. One of the two.
I thought he
Um,
died in Infinity War.
it was Infinity War, the first one. Yeah, he had a small scene in it. I'm glad they brought him back for this because he's a good character. He's a good character. So I liked
He's
it. I
yeah,
thought the show was good. I didn't think the first episode was like great, but I like where they're heading. I think it's going to be one of those shows that it will get better and better and better and make more and more sense. And I do think it's gonna open the door to kind of the main villain for this next phase of the MCU. Remember, like Avengers, the first one came out, and then it was like Thanos, and then every movie was just kind of building up to Thanos, and then they ended it with Endgame. Well, this is like the start of the next villain, and you saw it back with when WandaVision came out.
yeah,
They talked a little bit about the multiverse, and I know we're probably going to talk a little bit of spoilers here, um, but I think that's kind of where they're heading. They're heading towards, like explained in this first episode, where there's going to be different timelines. Where they kind of touched on it in Endgame as well, and it's like, oh, you don't want to create different timelines, and then you find out that this TVA is controlling the main timeline, and they don't want different timelines branching out. I think that's kind of where they're heading. They're heading for it to be this crazy, like all these timelines, and it's going to screw everything up, and it's going to factor into the new Doctor Strange movie. That's why they call it the Multiverse of Madness. It's going to tie into the new Spider-Man movie that's coming out. That's why there's rumors growing out that you're going to see the other Spider-Man characters from the other movies popping up in this movie. Um, they've kind of touched on it with WandaVision a little bit. I think that's kind of this is the next thing because once Thanos was over and he died, it was like, all right, now what are they going to do? They're trying to build up a whole other story, and I like it. I like the direction that they're taking with it.
yeah. They're doing a good job, and definitely the first episode was like, all right, we got to give you a primer because we can't just throw you into this. You'll be lost. Like we have to give you an explanation of what they're trying to do and how important the timeline is for its stability and all that stuff. So I get all that. It was it's tricky to me because I always find time travel stuff and timelines, and we saw that with the Flash TV show.
Yes.
It
Yep.
got so overwhelming that it was like, ugh, all right, like I'm lost now. Like, why is this guy coming, this villain? And so we'll see. I think if anybody with the production value that Disney has and the writing, and if they stay true to form to the comics, I think I think this should be interesting. And the rumors are flying. Like, will this finally bring in the X-Men to the multiverse, and will this bring in these
Yep.
characters? And so that'll be exciting. Like, I just want to see how they tie it in. I guess that's why I'm hooked. I'm just dying to see how they're going to tie this in. So
Yeah.
my nerd meter is like flying off. Like the whole dork meter is like flying off the charts right now because I'm just so curious to see how they bring all these characters into play
Yeah.
from different. And I was bummed because the this is not a really big spoiler, but they had because we talked about it on the previous podcast that Loki, one of the scenes in Loki, there's a glass window and it has
Mhm.
Mephisto, right? And that finally came up in the first episode, right? It was right away.
Yeah.
The kid pointed to it, and so I was all excited. I went to Screen Rant, like, "Oh, is this finally it? Is this Mephisto?" And but it gets confusing because the villain who we think it is, that's kind of driving the episode, that the villain they're going to be chasing, it's not Loki himself. Um, there's a twist that it actually might not be Mephisto after all that's
Mhm.
driving it. So I'm kind of bummed out. I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to play out. I'm dying to see, are they going to introduce the super villain like you're talking,
Yeah.
and or is it going to be like WandaVision where Agatha ends up being the whole
Right.
time?
Right.
It's like, yeah, it was her the whole time.
Well,
So
do you?
I don't want to spoil
Yeah.
it because it's only like the first day after the episode dropped. So if anybody listens to this tomorrow,
I know who you're referring to, but it's not like they mentioned him in the first episode. That's just more of a our theory of who the next big villain is.
no, I know, but that's what everybody keeps thinking is that like he's gonna be because he's in the Marvel comics, he's a super villain.
Yeah.
Like he's like, and
And they
it's
actually, I've read something that they actually uh, showed a picture of him in this episode. You just didn't know it was him. And I'm not talking about the glass window where it looked like Mephisto or what, it
yeah,
was
but I thought
another.
that I thought you meaning that scene in the dark at the like the ending.
No, no,
There was another one.
yes, yes, because they actually already cast the person to play this villain. We might as well just mention it. It's not like if we end up just saying it, it's not a,
You
people
can
don't
say
want to hear
Mephisto.
it. Well, Mephisto, but I'm talking about the other villain. I'm just going to mention his name. This is probably who you're referring to too. It's Kang, Kang the
Okay,
Conqueror.
okay, okay. So they
So
were all right.
so
Go ahead.
Kang is the one they've already hired the actor to play him. And if you saw like how they talked about like the three timekeepers,
Yes.
one of them they're saying is going to be Kang the Conqueror, and he's going to be like really the main villain. So he's going to like somehow go rogue or whatever, and he's going to because they're always responsible for the one timeline. If you looked at like there was like three statues
Yes.
and like of the three timekeepers, and the one in the middle looked exactly like Kang from the comics. And it actually somebody actually mentioned that it actually kind of looks like the actor that's actually going to play him. So I think
Interesting.
that's kind of probably what they're hinting to. He's probably going to be the next big villain that's coming up
Okay. So
because
Mephisto.
he's the guy that has the ability to like go to different timelines and different multiverses and like because he's one of the timekeepers, so he's got that ability to just do whatever.
Okay.
So
That
he's-
makes more sense because of how powerful the TVA is. They're
Yeah.
and if you watch the episode, you'll find out what that means. I won't spoil it for you, but there's a reason they're like probably like the most powerful thing in the universe because of what they do.
Yeah.
And so that you know what, 'cause it feels like they're throwing you these bones with this whole devil thing, but I think they're just to your point, they're just distractions, maybe just to kind of
Sure.
give
Or
you
maybe
false
he
sense.
is. Maybe he's one of them for this particular show. But Kang is like, like Thanos, right? Like all these movies, like when the hell are they going to bring out Thanos? Like he wasn't doing anything. Like he wasn't in any of these movies. But he's kind of the guy in the background that's kind of helping to pull a lot of the strings. And meanwhile, there's other villains that are kind of popping in. And I think that's probably what you'll see,
Okay. Okay.
in a lot of these. So
All right. Now you got me excited. I have to go back and look. All right.
yeah,
Because see, the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Uh, it's funny. I was listening to Keith. I'm sorry. Sidebar. So I listened to Keith and Gresh, the show, and I only like Keith because he does his dork podcast.
Yeah.
And he's a lot like us. Loves sports, but loves like the comics and the movies. And he was talking about just like he goes, if I have to go and read to understand the episode, like he was going off on that, and I'm thinking, I actually like that. Like if a show gets me so into it that I actually I want to know more about what's going on. That I actually enjoy. And he was like shitting on it, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
come on, like that's actually the fun. If a show can get you so excited that you want to
Right.
learn more from the backstory and what that means, and gets you excited. I didn't get that from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but Loki got me back in. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm back to researching,
Right.
like I did
right.
with WandaVision. Like I'm excited for next week. What does it mean? And so,
That's true.
you know
I like
what?
it too.
And when you're in the summer months, it's good to have a show like this, especially with sports. We're kind of in like that lull zone where it's just baseball. We've got through Sally, the Bruins getting bumped out, the Celtics shit the bed. Now we're just waiting for training camp news and all that nonsense, which is another sidebar. So, so I'm transitioning it. Actually, I don't want to.
and our draft lottery. Don't forget
Yeah.
about our draft
So,
lottery a
so
month
that's
from
something.
now.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to the 4th of July, and we'll do our draft lottery. So I like having a show that gets me excited. Um, if you're into a drama, and it really is a true drama, not a lot of violence. It doesn't have. Um, it's typical like Apple TV type of dramas. I find the more you got to think and watch and pay attention. There's a show that I'm watching with my wife right now. I'm not going to go into detail. It's called Mosquito Coast. If you like dramas, it's actually it's an interesting show. I don't know how to feel about it. It's got me hooked because I'm trying to see what happens next, but I don't know if I'm in love with the show. But it's just a show. If you're looking for something to watch, try Mosquito Coast if you like dramas. That's just throwing it out there. But um, going away from different topics, that was sci-fi was with Disney Plus. So biographies, A&E biography for WWE is probably the best thing on TV right now that I've been watching. I don't know about you, but that is like
Love
some.
them.
I'm a loss of words. I don't know. Like I get hooked in for an hour and a half. Like I don't even touch my phone.
Yeah,
I am like totally glued onto the screen.
it's
Uh,
so good. They're so good. Every single one of them has been excellent. And I gotta say, like the biography ones now, and I know they do a lot of them with other people too, but more specifically, the ones I've been watching is the WWE ones, and they're not doing these episodes on obscure like wrestlers. Like some of the Dark Side of the Ring episodes were like, ah, who the heck was that guy that they're talking about? These are the main stars. These were the main wrestlers of the 80s and 90s and 2000s that they're doing these stories on, and you would think that you know everything about them just because from watching wrestling being younger, and it's like you think you know everything there is to know about these wrestlers, but you don't, because every single one of these biographies I've learned a handful of things that I never knew before, like interesting things. So they've been so good, and I agree. I can't wait for the next episodes that come out. um the most
but
recent one was the Bret Hart one, which was great. Are they done now? Are they doing another one? I don't even know who the next,
well,
if
that's
they're
I was
doing
just going to
another.
ask you. Do they have a list of what the sequence of what they're doing?
They
Because
did
they're
have a list.
because they're focusing a lot on. I know. I think they did Stone Cold. Uh,
That
did
was
they
the
do?
first one.
That was the first one, right?
Yeah.
But then they've seemed to kind of stick around with a lot of the early 80s to early 90s characters, right? They haven't really done modern characters at this point.
No, no, no. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of I mean, there were wrestlers that they did that were still wrestling into like the 2000s, but early on in the 2000s when they were done, like
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels, like and but yeah, they've done on Mick Foley, who wrestled, well into the 2000s. Um,
So it's biography WWE Legends, and so they did. I got the list right here.
yeah,
Um, so I wonder if it's done.
I think it's done. Yeah, I think that was
Steve
it. They
Austin,
did
Macho
8.
Man, Rodney Savage, Roddy Piper, Booker T. Did Booker T come out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I watched
Okay.
it. It was good.
Okay. Shawn Michaels came out. Bret Hart, Mick Foley, and Ultimate Warrior. Yeah. So
Yeah,
sadly,
that's it. It was an 8 episode season.
okay. All right. It wasn't bad. So I hope they renew it because I like that. There's so many other characters they haven't even dived into yet.
Sure.
So I'm dying to see it. So I mean, not the Bret Michael, the Bret Hart one. That one was really interesting. And I know his family was in wrestling. I already knew that. That wasn't a surprise. I didn't know his in laws were such a big part of the wrestling also. Like when you find out like the British Bulldog
Yeah,
was
yeah.
related to him. The Anvil, I knew it was his partner. I didn't know it was his brother-in-law that he did.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I knew that part. Yeah, I knew that part. But I didn't know to the extent of how many siblings he had, and like all the little nuances, like of certain people, uh like I knew Jim Neidhart, I knew the British Bulldog. Um but then there were like a couple of his other brothers. Like I had no idea like one of his brothers was like a referee, where and
Two of
it's like
them,
his
two of them were. There
two of
was
them were
like
referees. Yeah.
yeah, two. They wrestled and were referees. It was just interesting in the
Yeah,
early
just little
days.
things
Yeah,
in the early days. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
his dad was basically developed a lot of wrestlers, like
yeah,
just like the thing that he did in his basement, and like they would hear people
yeah,
screaming, and he would just
it was legit like a family of like 25 people, between all the brothers and the sisters and everyone that they've married and now their kids, right? Because Jim Neidhart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, his daughter Natalia, she wrestles in the
no. Was he
WWE.
not
She's another
alive? Did
female.
he die?
He died like a year ago. Yeah, a year, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay, because they didn't really say anything.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. That the fact that he passed away and
yeah, it
yeah,
was kind of
that
odd. Like
was
his
three
daughter
years
was
ago.
there, and I was
Yeah,
like, why isn't he being interviewed? Because he played
yeah.
such an important role, and they didn't explain. I know WWE and Vince wanted Brett to be on his own. So I don't remember that breakup between him and the whatever happened to the Anvil. Did he just stop wrestling completely after they broke up?
Good question. I don't. That's kind of right when I stopped watching wrestling in like the '90s. It was when Bret Hart, and in fact, I wasn't really that big of a fan of Bret Hart, especially when he went on his own. I was just like, I always remember him as the Hart Foundation, and now he's gonna go on his own. And I don't remember him having that great of a personality. Like he was just kind of dry, and
He
I don't
still
know. He
is.
just
Like you still
yeah,
feel
yeah.
it in the documentary. He's still dry.
Just very dry, and I'm just like, I wasn't really that interested. But now, like now knowing more about his story, plus like I mean, everybody knew about the Montreal screw job and everything, that whole, backstory. But you feel bad for the guy, and you look back and you're like, yeah, he was actually like a real loyal wrestler, and he was really loyal to the company and to Vince McMahon, and he was great, and he just like he got screwed. He just got screwed, and you feel bad for him because he wasn't over the top. Like he didn't have like this crazy gimmick. He wasn't like he was just seemed like a normal human being, and that was really good at wrestling. That's why they called him, the excellence of execution. He was so good at it, and it just you look back to his whole life, and it spiraled out of control as soon as he left WWE, and after that whole screw job, it didn't work out in WCW. Then he had a stroke, and
Yeah,
then
the
and then
stroke was a curveball. I didn't even
and
know he had a stroke. Yeah, that
yeah,
was
yeah, his brother died tragically, right? His little brother. I mean, just like everything just went. And he went into like depression for like 10 years or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just such a sad, sad story. So you got to respect the guy for what
It
he
is.
went through.
It's. I think I dropped off like probably like right around you. I remember Bret Hart wrestling by himself to a point. The Shawn Michael, like I don't remember watching the Montreal Screwjob. I didn't remember seeing that. I've heard of it. I just didn't remember watching it.
Yeah, I wasn't. That was the time when I wasn't watching wrestling either. So
Yeah, so I remember
hear
like
about it
I remember
later.
Shawn Michael coming in, but I was never a fan of him. And then I was listening to him talk and stuff, and I'm like, wow, like I can't believe like there was a time like I missed that time, and I'm almost I felt bad. I'm like, I wish I did watch it. It looks like there was a good time to be watching.
Yeah, I remember, being in college and walking in and seeing everybody like crowded around the TV watching wrestling at that time, and I was like, "You guys still watch wrestling?"
Yeah,
And they're like, "Oh, I just remember everyone's like, it's the best. It's so good. It's like so much better than what it was." And I was like, "You guys are out of your mind. You guys are crazy. Like, I can't believe you guys watching this stuff."
yeah, we
But
missed
now I
out.
get it. Now I
Yeah,
get it. I understand it. I understand like the
so
the draw for it.
yeah, they're well done. So if you haven't seen them, it's the summer months. If there's downtime, there's not a lot of new shows come out during the summer. You have to watch this. I highly recommend this series
Yeah,
because
even if
it's
you're
good
not a
wrestling.
wrestling fan, like even if like they're just interesting stories, interesting what these guys have what they've been through, like they're just everything about it. Everything they're just really really just great stories from these guys. So yeah, definitely recommend whether you're a wrestling fan or not. And I even said I've watched the Booker T one. I wasn't, a big fan of Book. I hardly even knew who the guy was, and I just watched it just because these episodes are so good that I still got sucked in to his to the whole biography. So
Yeah, you know,
really good, really
I
good.
I like the Bret Hart, which I missed the Goldberg era of wrestling, and he was when he said that he was just like this like lunatic out there, and like I thought that was like the
He
best
was
part of it.
reckless.
He's
Yeah, yeah,
reckless.
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so good. Like he's so honest. Like I'm like, this is what I want to hear. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Well,
like
that's a known thing in the wrestling business. Like Goldberg was never a safe wrestler to wrestle with. Like he was always reckless in the ring. He was always like hurting other wrestlers, whether it was on purpose or not. But it was just like nobody wanted to wrestle with the guy
yeah,
because they're like, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want
yeah.
my career to be ended. And what did he say? I think in the documentary he said he was like from 0 to 10 in terms of like how good of a wrestler he was. 10 being the best, he's like, I give him a 0. He was like, he was a 0. It
Yeah.
was like, it was nothing there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I did. I like that honesty.
yeah, it was good. It was that the Bret Hart one. I love the Roddy Piper one. I gotta say, the Bret Hart one was really good. So maybe like when I get a chance to watch all of them, I'd love to ask you. And Jarvis has to be on this because he'll be mad that he's not on this one to share his insights because he loves
Oh yeah.
wrestling.
Yes. And he loves the Bret Hart. He loves Bret Hart. He loves
Yeah, I
him
I like the
as a
Hart
wrestler.
Foundation. So we have to rank which episodes are the best. Like they were so good. They're all so good. But anyways, with that said, we'll move on. But you have to watch it. Just I can't stress that enough. So let's move on to the news. Not a lot of football news, but there was one big thing that has some relevant fantasy impact. We'll see how much it does. But the Julio Jones trade. So I know a lot of the Patriots fans, we had a lot of our hopes that we could use a player, even though with his age, just having him on the field would be just enough of a distraction to maybe open up other things. You have these great tight ends. Now you have Julio Jones. There was a lot of excitement. I got to say, when they were traded to Tennessee, and I think I mentioned that a couple podcasts, like the two teams that were being rumored, and Tennessee was already rumored a while ago when he first started coming out as one of the teams. I was kind of disappointed when I saw what they gave up. A second and a round and a fourth round pick for Julio Jones. I don't feel like that's asking a lot for a guy that still has playmaking capabilities.
Yeah.
And I know he's older. And again, I don't know. Was it a stretch for the Patriots to reach out for him? Like, is that too much to ask?
Well,
Are you disappointed when you saw the news, or did you think, yeah,
mm,
maybe it wasn't worth it?
I don't know. My feelings mixed on it because and by the way, Nostra Booyah did miss on that one because he did say the Patriots, but the Patriots were heavily interested in him, but then they weren't willing to budge on the asking price. So that's when they just moved away and they said, "Well, we really want him, but we don't want him. We don't want him for a second and a fourth." And by the way, Atlanta also, I think, had to give a sixth round pick back. I think something. I forget the exact details
Oh,
behind it.
okay, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, they had it.
Yeah,
There was a 6th round pick. Someone was exchanging the 6th round pick. I couldn't
yeah,
remember
yeah,
how it
yeah,
went.
yeah, yeah. And by then, it's like whatever. It's a crapshoot once you get to the sixth round, anyway. But I think it was more about the salary more than anything because they still have to pay. Tennessee still now has to pay Julio Jones a certain salary, and maybe Bill was just like, "Hey, I'm not giving up picks, and I'm gonna pay a lot of his salary for a guy who's 32 years old and he's injury prone, and you know what? He doesn't score a lot of touchdowns." It's like he's never had more than like 9 in a season. It's just weird how big and physical he is and not score any touchdowns. So maybe he looked at it and said, "No, I value my second and my fourth round pick a little bit more than that." But I got to tell you though, if he stays healthy with Tennessee, Julio Jones and AJ Brown and Derrick Henry in the backfield, holy smokes! I mean, you're talking like three of like the biggest dudes in whether a running back or receivers. I mean, they're monsters. Derrick Henry's like the biggest running back in the league today, and AJ Brown and Julio Jones together are combined are like the two biggest, most muscular freak shows of receivers that there are out there. It's gonna be it's good. I don't even know how teams would be able to keep up with them physically in games because how do you tackle you know one, let alone try to focus on tackling all three of them.
So that's an excellent segue because that's where I was going to go with it next. Like, all right, the Patriots moved on, but him going to Tennessee definitely has fantasy impact. Like, it's not like you went to a shit team; he's going to disappear. You never know. It's not like you don't expect what happened with Odell Beckham. Like, he went to Cleveland and just kind of like gone. Like
Yeah,
it's
went
just
to a run first team, and it was just like,
yeah.
yeah,
Now Tennessee is a run first team, but who do you like?
yeah.
Even though Julio went to Tennessee, I don't look at Julio as, oh, he is the guy now I want to get. I think AJ Brown's value just went up even higher because he's a freak. And now a team has to worry about AJ Brown as a freak
Yeah.
and Julio. And Julio can still go flying down the. I'm just wondering how they're going to play them off. Like,
Yeah.
because I think AJ Brown can play the slot also. He can play.
I think he could
Short,
play all over the field. And Julio Jones was, he was still known to be like the deep threat receiver as well. Like he still has some speed for a guy his size too. So yeah, it's interesting how they're gonna use both those guys.
in the end
Um,
zone, you have those two big statues out in the end zone. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like AJ Brown's value has gone up.
What about Derrick Henry?
Well, Derrick Henry, I think is still going to go in the top five no matter what, just because of who he is. I don't think it changes his fantasy value. He's going
Hmm.
early. We all know Derrick Henry is going to go early. I'm just wondering now, will AJ Brown move up? Would his average draft position move up more, just
Yeah.
because of the addition of Julio Jones to the team? The quarterback
Yeah.
situation doesn't change, but
You don't think so? You don't think Tannehill jumps up now that he has Julio Jones?
how much would you move him up for with because of Julio Jones? Like,
I mean, Tannehill was never, he had a great year last year. I don't know if you like had a look at
no,
his numbers, but
I
th-
do. You don't think of him
33.
as a top two. Like, would you start your team? Would you draft him in the top? We're a 10-man league. Say it's a 12-man league. Is he your
Yeah,
top 12 quarterback?
yeah,
Like,
oh yeah, yeah. He was a top 12 quarterback last year without Julio Jones, right? I mean, he had 33 touchdown passes and 7 rushing touchdowns, so 40 in all, and he only had like 7 interceptions. So and he runs a little bit, not a lot, but he runs a little bit. He's got 300 rushing yards or whatever. And he's gotten better and better every year in his career. Like I know in Miami, he was like, he was whatever. But when he got to Tennessee, he got better and better and better. And now you throw Julio Jones in the mix. I mean, who knows? I mean, he's sky's the limit for him as long as he doesn't revert back to the Miami Tannehill version. You know what I mean? But he was never a guy that people were gunning for in the draft, right? I mean, even this year, like before they got Julio Jones, were you really gunning for Tannehill? You were gunning for like Mahomes, obviously, Rodgers, depending on where he ends up, right? Brady, like all the Russell Wilson. Tannehill's just kind of down the list. He was down the list, but now has he moved up? Is he like top five? Could he be top
uh,
five? I don't know. I don't know.
I
It's tough to say. It's tough to say. I just see those weapons out there, and I know they're a run first team still, but they were a run first team last year. Derrick Henry had 2,000 yards, and he still threw 33 touchdown passes and 7 rushing touchdowns. So
so
I don't know. I
would
don't
I put
know.
Tannehill over Matt Stafford? Yes. At this point, I would probably better. I think he's got more weapons offensively right now. I would say he's got better weapons around him. I would say Matt Stafford. He's above Matt Stafford. Carson Wentz, is he above him? I don't
He's
know.
above him. He's
Yeah. So
above Wentz.
so
Yeah.
so he's above Wentz. He's above. I just don't know how many people are going to go and say he's going to start my team. I could see him being drafted as a backup, like an early backup, like he's my second quarterback I'm taking off the board. I don't know. I just have never been that big of a believer, but maybe I got to rethink that. Like, why sell him short when he has that kind of weapons around him? So you make a good point. I just have a hard time. I'd have to look at who his other options would be over him, I guess is the question I would ask.
Yeah. I'm trying to pull the list up on my phone and it's just not working right now. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, he'd be ahead of him, right? So there's still it's a heavy quarterback league, right? There's
Yeah.
still a lot of quarterbacks out there. Who's the Jarvis's guy there? Herbert. Uh, Justin Herbert. He's another one. He's going to be high up there. So maybe Tannehill still ends up in that seventh, eighth quarterback spot, right
All right.
around there.
So here's the top 12, 21 based on fantasy football calculator. Okay. So Joe, let's just say 9 through 12. It's
Hmm.
Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford. Deshaun Watson, and then Ryan Tannehill is 14. So I can see Ryan Tannehill, like I already said, Matt Stafford. So maybe he would fill in the 12th spot. But if Deshaun Watson gets through all his legal problems, are you really taking Ryan Tannehill over Deshaun Watson to start your team? Probably not.
Deshaun Watson is I mean, if his whole legal trouble is over, which it's highly unlikely. At least not this year. It's not. It's not. The justice system doesn't move that fast. It's a lot of cases against him. But let's just say, for the sake of it, they all get dropped or whatever, and he comes back. No, probably not. Probably not. But you're right. I mean, you're looking at Rodgers, Allen, Mahomes, Wilson, say Watson,
Kyler
Kyler Murray, Tom Brady.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah. If he's healthy, you still got Herbert. You still got Lamar Jackson. And even okay, that's what 11, 10 or 11 that we just mentioned there.
So in this
No,
list,
top
Jalen Hurts is in the top 12, and I would probably say Ryan Tannehill is above Jalen Hurts, talent-wise. I would say right now with the team around him, I'd rather have Ryan Tannehill over Jalen Hurts if I was drafting my team.
Yeah.
So Joe Burrow is tough to pass on. He's turning out to be a good quarterback.
Yeah, he had the 8th most points for QBs.
The
Yahoo League last year. Yeah, 8th. He was 8th.
Okay.
Right behind Tom Brady and Kyler Murray.
So there's a lot of quarterbacks. So I guess if you're drafting, see, we're in a 10-man league. So I think there are 10 great quarterbacks that you can get before you get Ryan Tannehill. So I think he's going to end up being someone's number 2 quarterback. And I don't think anybody's taking him in this top 10. If you're in a 12-man league, you're drafting in a 12-man league, I think Ryan Tannehill is going to fall in the 12-man. He's going to be someone's starter in a 12-man.
Yeah.
I would think so. I can't like Matt Ryan's value is completely all he has is Calvin Ridley now. Like I don't know what you're going to do with Matt Ryan. I feel bad for him.
Well, they drafted
the tight end.
Yeah.
So they have him, but he's still a rookie. I mean,
sure.
Who knows?
Sure. But I mean, how do you feel though if Watson doesn't play this year because of his legal troubles, right? And what happens with Rodgers? Like what if he retires? What if they do trade him to say Denver and he's throwing to a bunch of nobodies out there? I don't know. Would you still take Rodgers ahead of him? I guess because of the name, because it's Aaron Rodgers. But
I wouldn't, but I know someone on this team would in our league. So he's not someone I'm worried about. At least in our league, we could talk about it from our league perspective and then what normal leagues would do. But in our league, Rodgers is going no matter what in the top 10. It's just it's a guarantee.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Yeah. But I'm just thinking all right, say even if you include Rodgers, Allen, Mahomes, those are no-brainers. Even Tom Brady at this point, right? All of his weapons, that's a no-brainer. I don't know if Russell Wilson. I don't know. Russell Wilson seems to be the first. Maybe I'll draft Russell Wilson for the first half and hang on to Tannehill for the second half because Russell Wilson always collapses in that second half. I don't know if Kyler Murray, I like Kyler Murray too. I loved him last year. I don't know if he could. He's had a lot of inconsistent games too. One game he's putting up huge numbers, then he just falls off. I don't know. And then Herbert, does he have the sophomore slump? He had a big year last year, but maybe now with a little bit more.
Well, you can argue that with. Well, all right, but see now we're getting into we're getting into our fantasy episode of quarterbacks. So let's not get too into the weeds of this.
All right, I'm just saying. I'm just trying to put my spin on it. Is where I see the potential of where Tannehill could be. Would you be shocked if he was now we're going back to this? This is deja vu, Azar. This is like our conversation last year. Do you think he will be a top 5 quarterback next year? This is the discussion from Tom Brady to Ryan Tannehill. Will Ryan Tannehill be a top 5 quarterback by year end?
So our conversation is different. So we're saying where is he being drafted? Because we're in the draft period right now, right? Where should someone take him is what I'm focusing on. Mm-hmm. I just don't see him. again, we have a month and a half of news and camp to open up and see where players are. Where does Rodgers land? Where's Burrow's health? There's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
So
Prescott, like, where's his ankle? Like,
exactly. So
yeah,
there's a lot of players that if training camp opens up, Tannehill's draft value might be completely different from what we're saying today. He might actually be a top 5 quarterback because our top 5 front-loaded quarterbacks are actually have all these question marks and may not even be starting, or they're still limping along. So maybe Tannehill's value does jump up. I'm stretching to top 5, but again, I think from a draft perspective, once the draft is over, where is he going to finish with those weapons? And again, we don't know if Julio is going to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They do play in a very physical division. Those teams, Tennessee does seem to play physical games. Can Julio take the beating? Like AJ can take the hits. Like he's a big guy. You've seen him run the ball, and he puts hits on people. I don't see Julio as a guy that when he catches the ball is putting a hit on a defensive back. I feel like he's like, despite his size, is the one getting crunched when he gets tackled and stuff like that. And then he disappears for a couple of weeks because he's kind of limping and stuff. So I don't want to overvalue Julio Jones just because let's not forget he does disappear some games. There might be a game with Tannehill. He has 3-4 touchdowns and you're like, he's a monster, and then disappears for 6 weeks. And you'd be like, would you be shocked? Like, and are you going to design the offense around Julio or AJ? And then they're still going to run the ball a lot. So it's I don't want to overvalue it.
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah, I know I've knocked Julio Jones before because he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. And Atlanta, like his whole time in Atlanta, other than recently with Calvin Ridley, but that was like the last couple of years. Julio Jones got injured a lot. And Calvin Ridley became a big star in the league. Like he like surpassed Julio Jones and how good he is. But when Julio Jones was in there last year, when the games that he did play, he still wasn't scoring touchdowns, which is so like bizarre to me how he cannot score touchdowns. But the games that he was in, he was targeted a lot. He caught a lot of passes. He had a lot of yards. He was still a beast out there, and they did it without really a running back, right? They didn't really have a running back last year. They never really did have a great running back in Atlanta. Whereas now in Tennessee, they have one of the best running backs in Derrick Henry and another A.J. Brown receiver who's, a different type of receiver than Calvin Ridley, but very similar type like Julio Jones, just big, he's just big and muscular and fast. And I don't know I don't know how defenses are gonna defend against the Titans. I don't know how they're gonna when they get inside the red zone. Do they stack the box and say, all right, we're going to stack the box because they're going to give it to Derrick Henry? Well, you got A.J. Brown on one side and Julio Jones on the other side. They're gifted like physical freaks. Does Tannehill just throw the ball to whoever has single coverage and let them go and get it? It's just, for me, it's like, I don't know what they do. I don't know how defenses will stop them because of their physicality, and I know Julio Jones he's older now, so I think I agree with you a little bit there. He's not as physical as AJ Brown, but he's still a muscular dude. He's tall, he's big. He's just, I don't know. But again,
I don't want to question. I know your eyes for firm men. Like I know I've had these conversations with you. You are into physical men. I get that.
Have you seen Derrick Henry's workout videos?
Yes, exactly. So it seems like it's a Titans thing for you. You get all hot and bothered.
Maybe. Yeah, even Vrabel, the coach, like he's a big physical man. I like it.
I agree with what you're saying. I just feel what you're selling me on is AJ Brown's value is greater because Derrick Henry is going to get the ball. And if they can't run it in, now the defense has to figure out, who are we going to double team at the end zone? Do you double team AJ Brown? Either way, they're screwed. And I just feel like you're going to see more big plays to AJ Brown now at the goal line because they're going to stack the box for the first 2 downs, and then when it's the third down to throw, I just think AJ Brown is just more versatile.
But then you also have Tannehill. It's like, okay, no play action pass to Derrick Henry, right? Fake handoff or whatever. And then you got Julio and AJ Brown going out there. There's got to be some holes there for Tannehill to run up the middle. He scored 7 touchdowns last year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he scored 10 this year. I think the sky's the limit for that offense. I think Julio Jones is almost like a perfect fit for them if he could stay healthy, and that's a big if.
And the only good thing too about this is that hasn't changed. Their defense is still suspect, so they're going to be thrown. They have to play
Yeah.
catch up. They're not going to be a team that can just sit with the run game. So I think Julio and AJ Brown will benefit. But the addition of Julio, what I would say is like the final thing on it is Tannehill's value went up and AJ Brown's value definitely went up. I just think I keep not mentioning Henry because I think his value is already high. It's not going to change. Did it make him a number one running back now? I don't know. Maybe. Like I think he's already in the top three discussion anyway.
Kind of
So
already, yeah. He was
yeah,
already
so I
there.
mean, like, what is it like? Oh, I'm going to take him second now because I don't know. He is the offense, but it's tough because he's a running back, and once you start putting that wear and tear after 2,000, we saw look at CMC, 2,000 all-purpose yard season. The next season he got hurt. So is Derrick Henry due
Well,
for an injury?
and honestly, and I don't care for saying this because I'm not going to have a top four pick, and there's no chance I'm going to get Derrick Henry. If I had the first overall pick, I wouldn't take Derrick Henry.
I wouldn't
I
either.
wouldn't. I wouldn't take him. I wouldn't take him before this Julio Jones. I wouldn't take him after it. Like he's got a lot of carries, a lot of touches the last couple of years, and before the last couple of years, he did have the little bit of the injury prone tag on him, and he just managed to stay healthy. He doesn't have any shiftiness. He doesn't have any one of my favorite words, jukeability. He doesn't have a lot of jukeability. He's just like,
Yeah.
hey, I see a hole, and all of a sudden he just picks up steam, and then it's hard to bring him down. And it's always been his game. That still doesn't catch a lot of passes. I just think for the number one pick, like I had him last year. I loved him. But it was all those games where I was like, oh, it's like, oh, make that guy miss. No, he can't make that guy miss. Oh, make that. No, he can't make. It's like, he hit a wall. No, it's like, oh, what the hell? And then it was just like, boom, he had that one hole and he ran for 60, 70 yards touchdown. And by the end of the game, it's like, oh, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hey, I'll take it. I like it.
Yeah.
It's just he's kind of frustrating to watch a little bit. And I just having him as the first overall pick, I don't know. That's too risky for me.
So this is teasing, guys. We're teasing you. I know we're getting into fantasy talk. We're a little ahead of ourselves. We're now getting into a running back episode here.
Yeah, I love it. We're gonna talk about tight ends next. Tight ends.
I will.
George Kittle.
Actually, this year might be more of a tight end year because there have been some additions. Anyways, I think we've gone a little longer than we thought. I thought this could be another quick episode, and somehow we drag it out. But I think that's a good part to wrap it up here because I don't want to get into a fantasy running back ranking and quarterback ranking. It's still early. Let's calm ourselves.
I want to get my words in while Jarvis isn't here. That's why I'm getting all excited because if Jarvis was here, I couldn't get a word in.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. But you know what? It makes it interesting because he likes to timestamp everything and he wants to hold you accountable. So I don't want you to say anything that we can't have Jarvis timestamping so we can reference it back because he'll tell us exactly which episode and time. Yes. So anyways, I'll give you a chance, Big Me. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I got nothing. I know we've been doing this every other week podcast now. So, the next one we do will be a couple more Loki episodes in, which would be good to kind of go back and talk about those. And like we've been kind of talking about, we do our draft lottery for our fantasy league 4th of July week. It's less than a month away. We'll have one more podcast episode after this. And then maybe the one after that will be when we actually know where we're drafting and we could really get into some serious fantasy discussion. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That actually might be true because the next episode will be the week of I'll just say it's like the 24th when we normally drop it. And then we'll have our draft. And that following after 4th of July, that following Wednesday, Thursday, we'll be dropping another episode. So we'll be giving out our draft order. So it'll give us a little bit more chance to kind of dive into that.
I already know what I'm getting. I always end up with 10 or 9, and you'll end up with the other one, right? Well. Oh, wait a minute. No, are you picking top 4? No, you made
I made the playoffs.
You made the playoffs. Sorry. So me and you will be 9 and 10, and Mr. Roper, who always gets lucky, will have the number 1 overall pick again or and it's just like it always works out that way. I never get like the fifth. I don't think I've ever had the fifth pick ever, and
I
and it's just weird how that works out. It's like everybody has equal odds between picking 5 through 10, and I always end up with 9 or 10.
I'm always there with you, so I don't know. I always feel like I'm always
Yeah,
drafting the bottom. I think this past year, I drafted a little bit higher up, but whatever. The knuckleheads in our league will screw it up anyway, so I'm not worried about it. It's
yeah,
all gold. It's all gold.
yeah.
And Mr. Roper will have his binder, and he'll be all stressed out and
That's right.
shaky, and you know, just
Yeah.
I just hope he drafts the first Detroit player. That's all I'm hoping for.
I can't wait till I find out what pick he is picking, and then I can really play the mind games with him. If he's got like the number one overall pick, I'll continue start saying like, hey, Derrick Henry, like it's no good, no good. I think you should really go for somebody a little bit more safe, a little bit more
Well,
safe than him.
the funny thing is if he does get a number one pick, he'll be more stressed out than anybody else because there'll be all the eyes and pressure on him not to screw it up, and he'll be even more of a nervous wreck just because of that. So that actually is the only benefit of him getting a top pick is just
Yeah.
because you know how stressed out he'll be about it. He'll be just a nervous wreck. He won't talk to anybody. He'll shut in if the player is a bust from the beginning. His fantasy season will shut down quickly. He'll be out of the picture for 6 months. so
I'll try to convince him to take David Johnson again.
all right, folks. We'll have a good night. We'll catch you guys in a couple weeks. And again, enjoy Loki. And if you're going to watch anything over the summer, WWE biographies on A&E are fantastic. You're basically on demand right now because I think they've done all episodes. So just watch them on demand. So worth it. All right, Big Meat. Have a great night.
All right, you too.